Hello, I'm Sherry Sturman, Director of Crayola Education. We're excited that Random House Children's Books is collaborating with Crayola on this read-along, draw-along event. This series helps children enjoy great stories and the illustrations that bring them alive. So get cozy, grab some drawing supplies, and get ready for an interactive story session. I'm thrilled to introduce our guests, author Trudy Ludwig and illustrator Patrice Barton, who collaborated on the book The Invisible Boy. Trudy, you have described your mother as your role model, since she always emphasized perseverance and empathy. I found her story fascinating that she started college in her 40s, actually the same time that you did in your youth, and she became a family therapist and certified art therapist. Please tell us how your childhood experiences and having a mother who cared so deeply about emotional strength, how did that influence your career as an author of books that deal with emotions?
I've been told by my siblings, I'm the youngest of 5 kids in our household, and my siblings would always tell me that I'm most like my mother. And like my mother, I've always been curious about people and their personalities. I think that's why she really was fascinated by psychology, as am I. I'm also fascinated by how people communicate. As a child, I was rather shy and introverted, and a vicarious observer of my bigger siblings, some of whom would get in trouble. So I would learn from their mistakes. The other really wonderful thing is my mom really encouraged us to all have creative outlets. My father as well. My mom was a very creative person, but she always had creative outlets and encouraged us to, whether it with writing or artwork or cooking and baking. As we got older, starting a business, she was very supportive of us to be creative in how we pursued our dreams. I owe a lot to my mom for showing how if you have grit and perseverance, you can really accomplish many things. So she's been a great role model all through my adult life as well.
Patrice, before becoming a children's book illustrator, you were a house painter, graphic designer, and interestingly, an artist who worked for the state of Texas, creating courtroom displays. What did that work involve? And how did your previous jobs help prepare you for this career where you've illustrated more than 20 children's books?
The work with the state of Texas involved designing posters and building 3D models for the courtroom. And these posters and models would help the lawyers tell the story of how a crime happened to the jury. So now when I illustrate picture books, my artwork helps the author tell their stories to our readers. And all my other jobs had responsibilities that have also been helpful in my job as an illustrator. Like I would learn how to work with others as a team, because picture book making is certainly teamwork. There's a lot of people involved in getting a picture book made. And I also learned how to meet deadlines and how to bring my best every day to whatever job I'm doing.
What a great story about the courtrooms. You're right. We've got to visually see something to understand it. Beautiful. Trudy, you have written many award-winning children's books, and many of which address social and emotional growth, particularly empathy, inclusion, and how small acts of kindness can help kids feel seen and heard. A lot of this content is very personal to you. Please tell us about your daughter's experiences with being bullied and how that led you to focus on stories that really talk about the importance of being kind.
This happened many years ago. My daughter is now 29. When my daughter was having difficulty with some friends when she was younger, it started as early as kindergarten, and it imploded the first week of second grade. And when I was trying to find resources to help my daughter deal with the dynamics of friendships and what makes a friendship a healthy one and what makes a friendship an unhealthy one, I noticed that there really weren't any resources available to help me help her. And it also triggered for me memories when I was a child and also as a young adult about those friends who are nice one day and mean the next, or hang out with you until someone better comes along. And so I really wanted to help fill this resource gap for kids, because kids' lives are really more complex than when I was a child. Navigating their online and offline social world, it can be rather difficult. And I think it's really important for kids to understand how to gravitate to those kids who make them feel good about themselves and bring out the best in them and can accept all the goodness they have to offer and give it back in kind.
Patrice, please tell us about the first time that you and Trudy were connected by a publisher who thought there could be great magic in pairing you two. And tell us about the process of your working together on this book. When you first read the manuscript, how did Trudy's words about feeling invisible and building new friendships make you feel?
Well, you're right when you mentioned that the publisher thought there'd be magic in pairing Trudy and I. Publishers are great matchmakers, and part of their job is to find just the right illustrator for the story. And they thought my artwork would be a good match for The Invisible Boy, so they sent it to me to read. I immediately fell in love with it. I think Trudy's story had everything that a good story needs. First of all, it came directly from her heart. And secondly, it touched on universal feelings. So I think feeling invisible is something everybody has felt at one time or another in their lives. And also making a new friend is a joyful feeling everyone can relate to.
Trudy, could you please read The Invisible Boy? We're really excited to hear this book.
Here is The Invisible Boy right here. And I'm going to show you the artwork. These are called the end pages. And there is Brian, little guy. And then this is called the title page. You can see with the background of Brian's illustrations, illustrated by Patrice Barton. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. At choosing time, while the other kids play, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, and then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. Oh, look at Brian. He doesn't look too happy, does he? In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, said Madison. Everyone did except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings. Thank you for toasting my marshmallows. He draws space aliens locked in intergalactic battles. I got you now. Greedy pirates digging for treasure, and the pirate yells, crackers, arr! And the parrot squawks back, yay! He also draws superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. Hi, friend, have a cookie. One Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend, and they haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. Oh, what? Asks JT. Bulgogi, repeats Justin. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'd eat boogergy, says JT. And the kids all laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian, yum. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Asks Justin. Yeah, thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Do you see the little drawing Justin made? There it is. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asked the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off, and Brian heads towards Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti said we could have up to 3 people in our group, says Emilio. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him work with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. I wonder what kind of kids would live in houses like that. I don't know, says Justin, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story. And Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. And here they are, creating the story that they made up on the spot. Do you like the hats they're wearing? I love the shark hat that Patrice had made. Cracks me up every time I see it. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian! He hears someone shout, hey, Brian, over here. Brian turns and he sees Justin waving him over, and Emilio nods as he makes room for him at the table. Cookie? Thanks. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. And that at the end of the school day, they're on the playground with Brian, Emilio, and Justin doing drawings to allow the other kids' imagination soar. And for parents and teachers and any adults that work with kids, there are wonderful discussion questions and additional resources for you to use as a springboard for conversations.
Thank you, Trudy. And I love the dramatic voices that you use to bring each of the characters to life. That's awesome. Tell us a bit more about Brian, the main character, and how each of us can connect with his feelings of being left out, overlooked, teased, and forgotten. You've often said that even as grown-ups, we can have these feelings that Brian described when we learn that there's a birthday party we weren't invited to, or when somebody makes fun of the food that we're eating. Why is it important for readers to connect with Brian's experience and feelings? And how could we all be more like Justin, the other character we meet in the story, whose simple acts of kindness open the doors for friendship?
I'm a very big advocate of using children's stories to promote empathy. And what scientists have found out, neuroscientists that study the brain, they actually have proven that well-written literature can build the empathy muscles in younger readers' brains. And so that's what I want to do. Is I am a sneaky author. I'm a children's author telling a story, but I'm really trying to teach character ed and help kids understand how it feels to be in someone else's shoes. Not only what it feels like to be in someone else's shoes, but also feeling compassion for another person's pain and suffering. And that's what I do with my story and with Brian. I want them to be able to connect, to see what it's like. They may not have that experience, but I don't want them to feel that it's okay to invalidate other people's feelings. And that's also part of empathy. I may not have gone through what you went through, but I'm seeing that you're in pain and I'm acknowledging it and I feel compassion for it. And that's what I wanted the readers to connect with Brian, to see him as a person who has his own voice.
That's beautiful information about how well-written stories can influence the empathy portions of our brain. And Trudy, in the story, you did such a beautiful job of making sure that Brian had several superpowers. And once kids gave him a chance, they were able to see and celebrate his creative gifts. So when Justin invites Brian to come and work on their team project, everyone sees how creative and artistic he is. Why is it important that you build up Brian's artistic self-expression and point out how his creativity enabled his entire team to shine?
Well, I think it was really important, especially when I share the book and I go through the pages. I show this one picture, if you don't mind, I'm going to share it here, because when I turn to this one page where he's sitting at the table doing what he loves to do best, this particular spread. And kids, this is a double page spread. That's when you have two pages opened in a book. I share with kids that the quietest children have the most colorful imagination. If you can just get to know them, find out what their interests are. For Brian, he really needed to shine in an area that he feels safe. For a lot of kids that are quiet and shy, it's really hard for them to make efforts to be really social, like other kids who are very extroverted. So it's important for us to be emotion detectives with our friends. Pay attention to what they do, not just what they say, but also what they do, because you can find that you have some commonalities with them, or you may discover some new talents that they have.
I love that you went back to that illustration and pointed it out for us, because in a few minutes, that is the illustration that Patrice has asked us to focus on for her demos. So we're really going to get some great insights as our viewers draw along with Patrice. So please tell our viewers about this intentional use of color and showing what Brian was feeling like inside, and how you planned those changes as his friendship were developing, his energy and vibrancy grew.
When people feel invisible, they can feel washed out and sort of empty. So I drew Brian in pencil with no color to visually show the reader that he was feeling washed out when he was being left out. And then when Justin began talking to Brian, I added just a little bit of color because then he was being noticed. And then finally, when Justin, Emilio, and Brian were all having a wonderful time working together on that project, Brian was in full color, being totally comfortable and totally at home and having some friends around him.
I'm excited that Patrice is going to do an art demo that we call Colorful Inside.
So here's a picture of Brian all by himself, feeling invisible, feeling kind of lonely, but he's just about to start drawing, which is his favorite activity. And here we go with his imagination. And you can see how vivid his imagination is, how colorful, and how much fun he has when he's drawing and expressing himself. So we're going to recreate this little drawing here. And while I'm doing this, you guys can think of what's in your imagination. Have fun drawing that while I'm drawing his little dragon. And I like to start with just a very light outline to give us a good idea of the space we're going to take up. We'll start with the building and then this big tower that the dragon's going to be hanging onto. And now we'll start with his body. He's got kind of a big rump and then a big head. And he's leaning over the building. And of course, he's smiling because he just loves breathing fire. And one of his little claws is right here. His hind leg barely fits on the building. And then his big tail swoops and he has a big triangle at the end of it. And don't forget his wings. And then we'll have a big eye and he's going to be looking down and his nose. And of course, they always love their very sharp, snaggly teeth. And now that we have kind of an outline of the dragon, let's put in a little bit more of our building. We're going to have 3 little windows, 3 windows here. And on the second floor, we have Brian's friend here with his marshmallow being ready to be toasted by the dragon. So let's put him in next. Just a little circle for his head. And then he's leaning way out the window and his arm is up. And he has a little pointy nose and he's happy too because he's delighted that he gets his marshmallow toasted. And here's the marshmallow. And we'll add a few more windows and now we'll bring in some darker lines. Okay, now we're going to outline our dragon. A little bit heavier. That's his nose. And he has a couple horns up here, big rump. And he has these little dragon bumps all down his back. And let's just bring him all the way down to his tail, which is pointy. And now his back leg and his little arm holding on to the spike here so he won't tip over and fall off that building since he's so huge. And his little round belly. We'll make his eye a little darker. And a smile. This, by the way, was our Easy Peel crayon pencil, which I just love because they're long and you can just draw with color with the side of them or the point. And now something that I've really had fun with are these watercolor crayons. And first, we're just going to kind of color in with the crayon. And the colors are so vivid and bright. It's almost magical what happens when you add a little water to them, which we're going to do in just a minute. And we don't have to fill it in completely. If you make it kind of rough, it gives him his body a real rough, dragony texture because, you know, they have all those scales. At least that's how I imagine them. I've never seen one, but we're here to use our imagination, so that's fine. Now let's see. The watercolor crayons come with their own paintbrush. So I have a little cup of water here, and I'm going to dip the paintbrush in it. And I always keep a paper towel handy in case I have too much water. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It just comes alive with that bright, bright green. And now for even more fun and a little more color, we have Crayola paint sticks, which I just have never used before. And I've had so much fun with them. And we're going to just put big patches of green all around. And then we're going to come back with this paintbrush. And look at that. He adds even more texture. I really like how those work. And then watch this. I just need a little bit for his nose. So I'm just going to touch the top of that crayon and fill in some of these little spaces. That looks pretty good. And let's give him a little yellow belly just for fun. There we go. And I'm going to use the orange paint crayon and have some of this flame coming out of his mouth for toasting the marshmallow. Make that marshmallow nice and toasty. And let's give our friend a little blue shirt here. While he's hanging out his window. You better hang on tight so he doesn't tip out. That'd be a whole nother drawing, wouldn't it? And watch how beautiful this blue is. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. And now let's work on this building. I think we'll make it like a purple. And again, you don't have to color in the whole building. You can make all kinds of nice little strokes with these crayons because that just adds texture. You know, buildings can be kind of rough with all their bricks and mortar. So it's okay if it's a little bit lumpy. And then watch how beautiful this works with our water. Oh my goodness. And it just fills in all those spaces that the color crayons leave. That is nice. And we can just go lighter as we go down if we want to. And let's color our little fella's face with our Colors of the World crayons. This is a medium almond. Well, let's put a little bit of orange paint stick in this fire to make it really bright. And we can put a little light in the windows. See if somebody's home and the lights on, probably wondering what all that commotion is outside. Just your friendly dragon toasting a marshmallow. And then another thing that I really had fun with is this glitter glue. And this is a red. And I don't know if this will show up on the camera, but we're going to put some bright red glitter glue in his flame to make it look even brighter. And then it'll sparkle in the light when it hits it. So there we go. He's quiet on the outside, but colorful on the inside.
It's going to be so much fun for our viewers to do that alongside you. The next demo we call Continue the Story. And again, it was one of the pictures that Trudy paused to talk about when she was reading the story about how much fun the scene was where the three friends who are working on a project together create these delightful hats and extensions to their story. And what's really interesting is we don't know what their story is. We don't know what they're presenting, but we certainly get some important clues by looking at the hats and the sketches they hold up. And so now it's the opportunity for our imaginations to kick in. So please demonstrate how kids could do the next scene. And tell us a little bit about how when you draw dinosaurs, you really base that off some inspiration, whether that's a book or a model that you sculpted, and why you enjoy having that as a reference material.
This was really fun to recreate the project that Brian and Justin and Amelia were working on. And we don't know what's happening here, but we know it's pretty exciting because I've never seen a shark chase a dino, but I don't know how it got there, but I think it'd be fun to make up the story. So we're today going to recreate this dinosaur side. And it's going to be 3 pieces. We're going to make some 3D grass, and we're going to paint a dinosaur and cut them out, and the rain cloud and cut it out. And we're going to start with the dinosaur. The first thing I do before I draw something realistic like a dinosaur is I like to do a little research. And you can look in reference books for dinosaur pictures, and that helps. Or maybe even at home, you might have a toy dinosaur lying around. I found this one in the bottom of a toy box that my son had when he was little. And then the next thing I did is I used
some Crayola model magic. And was that ever fun? The colors are so bright and vivid, and it's so soft and easy to use. And I could easily roll out a long snake-like neck for the brontosaurus, just like his, and a big egg-shaped body, and then another long tail. And you can see how short and stumpy his little legs are. So I'm going to use this as my reference when I draw the dinosaur. We'll get a piece of construction paper first. We're going to use one of these crayon pencils that I just love. This dinosaur just takes up the whole page. This is an egg shape. So let's do that first. We'll start with his egg-shaped body very lightly. And we can go outside the lines, doesn't matter because we're going to be cutting it out. And then he has this big tail flying in the air, just like this. Comes right off his back down to this round. He's just round. There's not a straight line on him. And then he's running. So we're going to have his neck stretched out a little bit like that, leaning forward, and put his little round head up there and then bring it on back. So you can just use great big, fast lines. And then as he's running, so one of his little legs is going to be flying out in front and the other one down on the ground. And this one on the ground too. And this one flying out the back. So there's our basic shape. And now I've just loved these gel crayons. They are so bright and vivid, and you just do them like that. Watch this. Watch how green this is. Swoop. Like I said, we don't have to worry about the lines because we're going to cut them out. Just feel free. Swoop. All those legs just are running. Now we're going to use this paint stick again. It's a little bit different shade of green, so that'll add a little more color. And then we can also just watch the magic happen when we add our water again. Oh, it's great. I made his tail kind of fat. When we cut him out, I might slim that down a little bit. We'll see. Maybe he's just a fat-tailed dino. So there he is. Now we'll put him aside to dry for a little bit while we make our big cloud. And you can see how fluffy and round this big cloud is, but it's a little heavy on the blue on the bottom because he's full of rain. So we'll make ours match that. We'll start with one of these crayon pencil and just make a big fluffy cloud like that. And now the gel pen. Look how beautiful that blue is. And we don't need a whole lot of color on this one because we're going to keep it white and fluffy on top. But look at that gorgeous blue. Heavy with rain. Ready to just spill down on that dino when he's trying to escape the shark. We'll just kind of add a little more water to lighten that blue until it turns back to white. And we'll let that dry a little bit, and we'll go on. For the next part, we're going to make this 3D grass, which really helps the story jump off the page. For that, I have a piece of construction paper, and we're just going to cut off a section on the bottom here, and it doesn't matter. There's no perfect length. You can make it really long grass or short grass, and it doesn't even have to be a straight line because every blade of grass is different. So we'll just make a rough cut. And this is a favorite trick I have. To make the grass hop off the page, we're going to roll it up in one of our pencil crayons. And just roll it back and forth. And that will make it curly for us. Okay, and we come back to our scissors, and we're just going to make some slices all the way down. And again, it's just fine that they're all different widths because grass is different, every blade. And another fun thing you can do is come back in and maybe cut out a few little triangles. Just little snippets. And you can see the grass looks even more individual. And now we're ready to assemble everything. So let's start with this beautiful yellow cardstock. It's from the Vivid cardstock pack. And oh, the colors are just to die for. There's so many. And we're going to get our washable glue and just put it along the bottom of the grass, not the top, because you want that to bounce off the page. So just on the bottom, and we'll just attach it to the very bottom and press it down. And there's our 3D grass. And you can always go back and curl it a little more. And we're started. Now let's get back to our dinosaur. He's ready to cut out. And it doesn't matter, there's no lines to have to follow exactly. If you don't get it exactly right, you can always go back and trim it up a little bit. We'll save his neck for last because it's kind of dangly. I'll thin his tail out just a little bit. Finish his little feet. Look at that little round dinosaur. He's so cute. Okay, now we'll get his head. Let's cut out a little smile. There we go. Since we want to continue the story with whatever we want to happen next, we're going to let his tail hang off the page, and that'll help us add to the next page. So let's just add glue to his body and his legs and his neck, but we're not going to put it on his tail. And if the glue goes outside, it's not a problem because it dries clear, so it won't even show. There he is, running scared. Now where's our cloud? Our cloud's ready. And I just love that we can just have all kinds of room to cut it out because of all the blue on the outside. You can't mess it up. All right. Oh, that's a great big cloud. We can even put it on top, so it's popping off the top of the page. It's such a big rain cloud, it won't even fit on our page. All righty, more blue on just the bottom. Oh, I love it. Look at that. And now we need to add some rain, don't we? How about our blue color stick? Because that kind of matches our cloud. And we'll just draw some rain coming down. Looks like I got a little green over here. That's okay. It'll be like a splash. The rain hitting the ground and making a splash. So I had so much fun experimenting with all these products. Look at, here's a marker. I'm going to make his eye. Let's put an eye in there on that dinosaur. We can go back and add anything more we want to it. But there's our first part of our story, and I can't wait to see what stories you guys come up with.
That's beautiful. And we look forward to seeing the photos so we can see how kids want to extend this story. Now that you've seen Patrice draw, it's time for you to create art. Grab some paint, color pencils, markers, and paper. And think about how you will draw a colorful inside featuring either Brian or his friends or you with your friends. You might prefer to draw the other art demo that continue the story and showcase your original ideas. Parents and teachers, when young artists finish their work, we recommend that you ask them what helps them feel seen and heard. And then post a photo of their art in the comment section. We can't wait to see what they create. And while kids of all ages are finishing their drawings, I want to mention to parents and teachers that you can continue to receive creative self-expression ideas from Crayola Education. Just sign up for our free monthly e-newsletters. Be the first to know about the next read-along, draw-along, and other colorful learning events. The news will be delivered straight to your email box. In our closing comments, Trudy, you are personally and professionally very dedicated to supporting social and emotional growth and helping kids develop the positive relationships, regulate their emotions, and really feeling this connection of kindness. While your books have made a huge difference in kids' lives, we also know that kids' parents and teachers influence their attitudes and behaviors. So what advice would you like to share that can help the adults in kids' lives to strengthen children's self-awareness and social interactions?
I think it's really important for adults to promote emotional resilience in kids. It's very important for them to understand and share with their kids, because the kids can see this happening in our world today, that good and bad coexist in our lives, right? And much as we grown-ups would love to get rid of all the hurt in our children's lives, we're not able to. We need to be honest with that. But also share with these same kids that even though we can't get rid of all the hurt in your world, what caring grown-ups can do, along with supportive peers, is to help us get through the hurt. And how we do that is making conscious choices on how we treat people. There will always be the kind and the cruel in every group of people. How someone treats another person is more important than who they are. And that's what we want to let our kids know, that we're expecting them to choose kind.
Beautiful advice. Thank you. Patrice, before we close the program, what last bits of advice would you like to share with our viewers that would encourage them to keep expressing their feelings through the arts?
I would suggest young artists stay playful and be creative, try new things, and just keep stretching and growing. Like for a visual artist, maybe try something you haven't used before, but whether it's clay or pastels or watercolors. And maybe if you're a musician, you might want to try just a variety of instruments, but just keep exploring and have fun.
We want to thank Trudy Ludwig and Patrice Barton for inspiring us today. We also want to thank Random House Children's Books for bringing this wonderful book to the Read Along Draw Along series. And we extend a special thanks to everyone who has joined us. Remember that the arts help you be seen and be heard, so express yourself and be kind.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.